I heard we met you about 7 years ago. 6-7 years ago.
We were
right?
back in iHeart. She had the Debra Tendrich show, and she was really just launching Eat Better, Live Better. My gosh, your daughter was so little, and she was working with, it was Michelle, she's now Matt Luck, but Dempsey at the time, and a lot of OGs from when you and I first started.
Michelle Dempsey, yes, I remember that.
Right?
She had a show too. Everybody had a show. It was like everybody had a show.
But now everyone's reinventing and doing their own thing.
So welcome to the show, welcome to the house.
Thank you.
She's never been to this studio.
I haven't. This is my first time here.
And tell us a little bit about the new invented Tendrich move.
Debra.
What are you doing? I mean, Debra?
Debra
What's her last name?
Tendrich.
That's what I said, Tendrich move. What did I say, Kendra? Oh. I have Kendra in my mind for this afternoon. So tell us about your latest and greatest, what you're doing now.
Well, I'm actually your candidate for Florida House District 89.
How did that come to be?
Well, you know what I do in the community. I work with families who can't afford to eat. I do nutrition education, and in 2020, we started feeding people, but we feed the hunger, not the disease. So it's healthier groceries. And during that transition, when you actually get into people's, I guess, finances and economic status and hardships, we also created a social services program where we are not only feeding people, but we're helping them find housing, pay for down payment assistance. We're helping them, if they can't feed their pets, feed their pets.
You're doing all of this now.
Dental, if they can't afford dental work, yeah. If they are sleeping on the floor and need help with the mattress.
How are you doing all of this? That's amazing.
So we have a social services coordinator now. We've grown a lot. We've fed over 200,000 people since 2020. We've given over 2 million pounds of groceries. And, you know, during that time working with the community, everyone says, I need you to be my bridge to Tallahassee. And I did run for city commission in 2020 and I lost, but that was like my trial run. And I really found a passion in making changes in people's lives, not just on the ground in the trenches with them every day, but in policy that can really make huge strides for their quality of life in multiple capacities. So I'm looking forward to really being the bridge between a community and Tallahassee.
And we're still doing Eat Better, Live Better. You're still doing your food and helping with the food insecurities
Absolutely.
in the community?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not going to quit that. But I have created a really great team that I trust that is helping move the organization forward and expanding and growing. I have Kristen. She's our Director of Fundraising and Partnerships. I have Michelle. She's our family coordinator. I have Lee, she's a volunteer and she does our pet food coordination. I have Jackie, who's on our board, but she also does our social services.
Wow.
We have Tanya, who's our warehouse manager. So we have a really good team.
You have a warehouse too?
Yeah, we're growing. We have 2,000 square feet.
Wow.
And honestly, that space isn't enough.
Sure.
We are looking for a larger space, but we're kind of staying put right now because property insurance and price of property
Everything.
is insane right now. So we have to be fiscally responsible as a nonprofit. So we're going to stay on site. But because of the space issues with only 2,000 square feet, we have a lot of programs we've actually created to go out into the community and really merge food and medicine.
And what's the platform that you're really working on for District 89?
Well, there's a lot of concerns in the community, you know, from education to women's rights to obviously just being able to put food on your table right now. People aren't able to afford to live. We have a lot of seniors right now that are being priced out of home ownership because of the cost of property insurance.
True.
Because their bills are going up and they're on fixed incomes. You know, right now in hurricane season. So what happens if all these uninsured homes, especially mainly seniors who can't afford to keep up with that cost, they're either being canceled or losing their insurance, and a storm comes and demolishes their home? Who's going to help rebuild them? Who's going to be there to support them if they can't afford the insurance? How can they afford to rebuild? And so you have people making life-changing decisions between food, light bills, these rising costs because their incomes aren't rising fast enough with the cost of living. We have education. You know, we have a huge teacher shortage. There's so many different things that are crucially important to quality of life and just being able to be able to sustain the economy, small business support. You know, we have small businesses who are suffering because as they can't increase their prices, you know, but their profit margins are shrinking. So they're not able to have as much staff, or they're having to do things that, you know, are just putting their own business at risk because if they double their prices to keep up with the cost to run the business, they'll lose all their business.
True.
So we have a lot of concerns that are just not just district-wide, but these are statewide problems that are affecting everyone. And as a state legislature, I can help create policies and opportunities for some of these things to have some provide relief, or to create policies or guardrails to protect people from being in these situations.
In the district that you're in, you talk about a different population. It's not a Boca population of socioeconomics. You're looking at Green Acres, you're looking at Lake Worth. I know Atlantis is in there, but it's totally different. These people need food and housing help. You've got a lot of migrant workers out there. What's it like, and I don't even normally do politics, you're a Democrat working with a Republican governor, and we all know DeSantis and what he's doing. What does that look like for you?
Okay, so I don't know what's going to happen in the 2024 election, but right now it's a supermajority, obviously. So it's brutal for a Democrat. However, I have built relationships, bipartisan relationships, through my work in the community, and I have built trusting relationships in the community. So I'm actually receiving a lot of bipartisan support,
Right.
Not because we have fundamental beliefs that are the same, but because we do differ a lot. But they believe that I could actually maybe bring humanity back into politics, create conversations across party lines. Maybe just because a Republican says a policy doesn't mean it's bad. Just because a Democrat says a policy doesn't mean it's good, right? So I think that I come without any bias, because really my goal in life from the ground is to make people's quality of life better. I also am in the trenches, so I see policies differently. I don't think there's anyone in the House really that works with people in poverty, people who have lost everything, who went from rags to riches or riches to rags, right? So I have literally every single type of person that I could see how policies affect them through experience.
This is such an amazing aspect.
I was going to ask you, it's the biggest challenge you have facing right now is getting that population to vote.
No,
Do they come out?
yeah, I mean, voters, when there's something that drives them, they vote when they have somebody that they can support, something they believe in. There's some things that are coming on the ballot that we're really trying to, get abortion back on the ballot, clean water on the ballot, right to clean water. There's a lot of things that are just important. If you look at the education system, getting rid of diversity, equity, inclusion out of education, out of the workforce, things like that are driving people. I have a lot of experience in working with education, right? So in the colleges, getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not being able to talk about race and culture the same way, prevents a lot of professions like social work, like criminal justice. These things actually rely on diversity, equity, inclusion to do the job the best you can. So educators are leaving, but they're going to come out to vote because they're not happy with being scared to teach, being scared to talk, not getting fair pay, having to work a second job. I just talked to a professor the other day. She lost she has her job, but she can't sustain her household on a $55,000 a year income anymore. So she now is 60 years old, living with a roommate, and she has a second job. There's no reason that these teachers who are really educating the future should be put in these positions where they can't even afford to eat, and they have to come through my doors.
It's true. Yeah, teachers to be paying $55,000 a year at 60 years old and sustain your lifestyle, right? And you're educating you're the youth who's going to run our country. University of Florida, they just did a poll, came out there, the top public university with school in New Jersey, they're number 15 out of the top 100. And I know about 2,000 professors left because of the equity and inclusion problems that they're having.
So teachers are leaving. Actually, we have a huge teacher shortage right now. My daughter hasn't had a teacher in one of her classes for a whole month. She's been taught by Duolingo in her Spanish class because they need teachers desperately in these schools.
Yeah.
And if you look at what's coming up with the voucher program, where the private school students are now eligible to receive $8,000 per student, but that money should go to public schools. A lot of these vouchers are going to families who don't actually need the support, but they qualify for it. And I look at my publicly funded schools now, these private schools to me become public schools because they're taking public money to support them.
Did you ever think you'd be in politics?
No.
No, that's right. Your degree in social work. You told me you're on the board with FAU.
No degree in social work. I'm just on their board.
Okay.
But social work is an extremely important, crucial profession that a lot of this legislation is affecting.
You've always been a negotiator, always. And now you're being a negotiator at a bigger level. And now you're going to make your plate even bigger, because I'm sure that when you win this time, you're going to go to something even bigger, because it needs to be heard. I mean, you know, that you're telling people having the right to have clean water, to have food, to have services. You know, sometimes I scratch my head about some of the things that they're taking out, things for the school. My sister was a teacher, and she was treated poorly. She would have taken $50,000 a year when she started. It was under 20. It was the most ridiculous thing in New York City. It was crazy.
When I was a teacher, I was 22 because I had a master's.
Yeah, she didn't have a master's. After that, she went to school to get her master's. But the funny thing is that with our teachers, you see what's happening with the temperature. So they had to shut the schools down because it's 170 degrees in these schools up north. They don't have any
no
AC.
AC. I cannot even believe that's
because
a thing.
because I didn't have AC when I
but
went
that
to
was a
school.
long time ago.
It wasn't 107 degrees. But now they're sending them home. So now the parents are screaming because they don't have a plan B to having the kids come home. They're going to have to come home. And what about
There's
work? And yada,
right,
yada.
they're changing the times. There's no AC.
You know, it's just unbelievable that people have a tunnel vision towards problems.
You know what's so great about Debra is you started not doing this. You're not an attorney. You're not a politician. You started who you are as a mom. And you're like, you know what? This isn't right. We need to get food, better food to our families. And then it grew from there. It was just an organic movement of, you know what? There's better out there in our community, and we all need to come together. And now you're running, and you're going to win because you've built such a platform, and I love that you've got bipartisan support because food and humanity and clean water is not political.
She's a parent.
This is,
She's not a-
it's human. It's the right of being a human being.
I don't want to look at her as a politician. I look at her as a parent,
Right?
as a mom.
As a mom.
That's the name
as
of the
a
game.
person.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
honestly, to be honest, you know, legislation isn't about being right, isn't about proving a point. And that's what I see politics turning into right now. They really have human faces attached to each policy, whether it's a positive or negative impact, right? So I have to look at each policy and piece of legislation as how it's affecting each human face that I'm going to touch, my constituents, because when you go into politics to prove a point, to be right, for control, for power, and not really for the best interests of people, even people who don't vote for me are going to be my constituents. I have to do what's best interest for them too. So I want to talk to everyone. I want to make sure that I know what's important to everyone, because the better foundation I have, the better I can advocate in Tallahassee for the community as a whole. But every neighborhood, every community, every demographic has different needs too. So it's so important for me to reach out to every single group of people, every single neighborhood and community, because I need to know what's important to you.
If you could write a piece of legislation, I'm sorry, your first piece of legislation, what would it be?
Boy, you know, that's a loaded question. Obviously, I'd want to reinstate women's rights to choose. It's doing a lot, not just to, it's okay to believe something or not believe something, but you can't trample on someone else's beliefs and take away their rights. So a lot of doctors are even talking to me about how it's almost putting them in a position, this legislation, to violate their Hippocratic oath, because they're now having to worry about the law versus what's really in the best interest for the mom. You know, and most abortions typically take place within the, 15-week period. The exceptions are the ones that do not. And so you can't make legislation based on exceptions. You have to let medical professionals do it. Legislators have no business in the operating room. They have no business in the medical room. And whether you're against it for whatever belief it is, you're not the only belief system out there. And you have to respect other viewpoints, whether it makes you happy or not. You and I are never going to agree on everything, but at some point I have to say, well, it's not hurting me personally. So I have to respect that, it is your decision. The other legislation would be to make sure that we have more opportunity for affordable housing, and really put your foot to the fire when it comes to making sure that people have places to live. working on the property insurance crisis right now.
That's crazy.
People are either selling their homes, they're moving out of the state, they're being priced out of home ownership. People without mortgages are losing their homes. Condo association fees are extra astronomical. People just can't. We're going to lose our workforce. So, I was talking to some of the current senators and state reps right now. Can we put a fund together, at least for the senior citizens on a fixed income? They're not hiring 80-year-olds. A lot of them have chronic conditions where they can't work, and a lot of them don't have family support. They're alone.
Right.
So how are they going to make more money to sustain their households?
Right. You're looking at Social Security of what, $1,200 a month if you're
Right.
lucky to live on that.
Yeah, but the insurance thing is just so out of whack right now. People are just abandoning houses. They're walking away because they can't afford it.
Yeah, we just got our renewal on our homeowners insurance. Besides, it went up a ridiculous amount. They took out flood. They took out water. And there's all these carve-outs and amendments and changes that you have to call, and that, well, you can have it if you buy a flood policy. But then you need to buy a sinkhole policy because they'll only cover a certain amount if your house falls in a sinkhole. So then you need the separate sinkhole policy, and then you need the separate this policy. So it's there if you layer it, and it's only 125 more here, and it's only 176 here, and you're looking at another 1,000 on top of the increase. So they're being very specific, and that's if you're fortunate enough to have a policy.
Well, it's funny because when I worked for Charlie Rangel, and Charlie was in charge of the Ways and Means Committee in this country. He used to write the checks. He used to sign the checks for everything that they had to spend. And Charlie used to say to me, Charlie didn't speak any Spanish. And I was on 181st Street in Manhattan. And I was the only Spanish-speaking kid in there. Now, I was a freshman in college at NYU. And there were times that Charlie didn't want to talk to the public. And this is why I'm saying, I look at you as a mom. I look at you as, listen, I'll wait an hour, 2 hours, because you have a lot of constituents, and you got to wait your turn and everything else. You can't talk to everybody, and this you have to be in Tallahassee and back and forth. But I rather talk to her as a person, because Charlie, to me, when I used to talk to him, man, was like I was talking to a president. Because Charlie never was alone. He always had 100 people around him, and he was always signing things. So when I worked for him, it was the Cold War. And WABC called in, and they wanted to get Charlie's opinion about how to treat the Russians. Yeah. So I went and I knocked on the door. I think I told you the story. I said, Charlie, WABC's on the phone. They want to talk to you about this. He says, I don't got time for that. So I go back. I told the guy, listen, he's in the meeting. He can't. Well, tell us your opinion. You want my opinion? I told him, bomb him. He came running out, screaming, took the phone. He says, what's the matter with you? I mean, sometimes you got to go to extremes to be heard. And in politics, it really chokes you when you think nobody's listening, that there's nobody there because they're either up here and you feel like you're down here and you don't get anything done.
What I love about Debra, though, is you're in the trenches. You've walked the walk. You see what the community needs. Now, is there anyone running against you, or is the incumbent?
No, the incumbent is termed out.
Okay.
Dave Silvers, he's termed out. I do have a Republican opponent right now, but I'm not primaried. So, I just really hope that we can keep it respectful and clean. I don't want either of us to be affected after the election, because if you think about it, either I'm going to represent him or he's going to represent me. I just have a huge amount of support in the district. So it is looking like my favor, but
it's in November?
It is next year, November.
24.
Yeah, it's a marathon. But that gives me time to build relationships, talk to people, see what's important to them, and get a really good foundation for the community. It's a presidential election. A lot of the voting laws have changed. So in case anyone doesn't know, the entire vote by mail system is gone. So if you, it's not gone, but they canceled, right? they canceled every single vote by mail applicants. So you have to re-register if you're a vote by mail. If you like to vote by mail, you do have to go on, update your registration, and request a vote by mail ballot. So that's going to affect a lot of people because the message isn't reaching everyone. So especially the senior community. So a lot of the communities don't understand that they have to go back on to the supervisor election website to call, but you do have to re-register for vote by mail. In this election, you have to learn who is running and learn their platform, talk to them, and make an educated voting decision. Because if you're not happy what's happening right now, or something's affecting you, and you don't speak up, then they don't know how it's affecting you. The people who represent you need and require the community's input for them to make a decision. I'm not everywhere, and no legislator is. So how can I know how it's affecting if you don't communicate with me?
It's true. I love her platform. And just that where you came from and where you are now. I'm like this proud mom. Like, I'm so proud of you because you're walking the walk, and your daughter should be so proud of. I mean, you've set such an amazing example for your daughter also to see, you know, with hard work and determination and really believing in what you do. You can be anything. I mean, you're like a walking Barbie, like the Barbie motto. You can be anything that you want to be if you believe you can. You're a single mom, you're raising your daughter, and you've been doing this since she was little. It's not like she's grown and you're doing this as an older person.
And she's always doing something for somebody else. It's one thing about Debra that I got to tell you that I admire. You do things. She's always worked to better somebody else. You know, that she could pick to be anything else that she wants. She could open up home business and become a business owner and blah, blah. But she's always put others in front, you know, to help others and everything else. And I think that's an important value to what's going on right now. And everybody's always talking to me, saying, Tori, what are we going to do about change? Well, here you have a change. You know, and shame on you if you don't come out and you vote for change. Simple. You know, I love the fact that she was there that night and she was pointed out. Everybody knows Debra. She's got to know everybody and everybody's got to know her, but there's nothing wrong with that. She's always been, ever since iHeart, she's always been like this.
She's authentically who she is.
Exactly.
Which is so great.
And the only reason I'm doing it is because the community asked me to. It's not like I just woke up and said, I'm going to tell you I'm running. I had people actually recruit me and make sure. And it's not one group. It's the community. They're like, you hear me. I want you to hear me in Tallahassee. And these are no strings attached, no ask. These are just people from all different walks of life, different demographics that just say they see me there.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And, you know, I owe so much to Florida because a lot of people, you know, I'm starting to be more open about this, but in 2012, I moved here from Atlanta with a suitcase and my daughter. I started from scratch living in a domestic violence situation. And so when I moved here, I was able to really find my purpose. So I actually owe Florida my success, my new start to life, all the relationships I built, but I really found my purpose here in Florida. And so everything I can do to give back to Florida, to all the neighbors that I'll be serving, it's really important to me to make the biggest impact possible because it impacted me more than anyone I ever know.
That's amazing.
I think Florida owes you a thank you for everything you've done for it. I see it the other way. You came down here and you made a mark, but you've never done it only for you. You've done it for everybody. You've touched everybody. Everybody back in the day knew you. Now they're going to know you more. But it's never been a, hey, look at me only. Look, you never did that. Even when you had your show, you never did it. You used to bring on people onto the show and everything else. So I think Florida owes you a thank you. Now, with the election coming, they have a chance to pay that back.
It's a great story, a huge women empowerment story. It's just amazing. And one of our crew, Abraham, months ago was talking about wanting to write an article on food insecurity and what it's like in Florida. So maybe I can have them interview her and we can put it out in the newsletter.
I think it's 100% nice, absolutely. You know, it's different when you walk in the walk. It's different when you're involved in domestic violence. It's different when you're on the other side of the tracks and you got somebody else saying, oh, let's do away with this, let's do away with that, we don't need this. You ain't been there. And if you ain't been there, you don't know what it tastes like.
It's like Diaz for sheriff. You must know him, but.
But, you know, I mean, the whole new situation that's coming about politically is, I think this is going to be the biggest political November that ever hit this country for a lot of different reasons, good, right, wrong, or indifferent. But you know something, put your head on and focus on what's important to you, not Papi Chulo and everybody else around you who have nothing to do with your life. And the person you're going to be able to bring in there, you want to be able to talk to them, relate to them, and understand them. And if you can't do that, then get educated.
And I think part of it, too, is you have to think back to what it was like maybe when you were of childbearing years, because we're not now, but our kids are. what it looks like. It may not affect you now, but what if it had been then? And what if it's your child or your grandchild that's denied access to care and there's a critical emergency situation? You wouldn't want that. You wouldn't have wanted to be in that situation. Now that you're older and it doesn't matter, it does matter because you lose humanity.
It's funny you say that because there was a time when I used to politically fight with my two kids, my two boys, politically. And then one day I sat down and I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to listen. And I listened to their point of views. And I listened. And today, I'm happy to say that they understand where I come from, and now they're on my side of the tracks. Because all of a sudden, things don't look rosy anymore on the other side of the tracks, and they've changed. And you don't need to fight with one another to be heard. Listen to both sides and figure out what works for you, man.
But humanity is really the key, right? We all need food, we all need clean water, we all need housing, we all need a safe place to live, we all need a way to send our kids to school in a safe environment. That's bipartisan. That's just humanity.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because when I meet someone new and they say, are you a Democrat or Republican?
Right.
I say, if you are okay with it, can we talk about the issues first and then see if my party is important? Because a lot of times if you take the title, Republican or Democrat out, we all have the same purpose, the same intention, the same concerns. Just you can get to the number 5 multiple ways. 1 + 4, 2 + 3. The way you add up to 5 can be different, but it's still the same result. So ultimately, we all want the same thing. We want public safety. We want education. We want health care. We want, safe places to live, be able to have, like you said, clean air, clean water, rights, equity, inclusion. All these things are very, very important. And the country is based on diversity. From one person to the next, everyone's different from different countries, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds. It's just so important to make sure that everyone can understand that and come together and really just come for the same purpose of making people's lives better and understanding perspective. The reason you feel that way is because of your experiences, what your parents taught you, what you have gone through. I feel the same way for the same reason. So if I listen to why you came to that conclusion and then you listen to why I came to that conclusion, you might see why I feel the same way, just like with you and your kids.
Absolutely.
And those conversations aren't being had right now across party lines. So I used to joke and say, what if we just took out party and just had people? I mean, we look at politics differently.
How about the people party? Where is District 89?
It's Green Acres, Lake Worth, Lake Clark Shores, Atlantis, Palm Springs, and West Palm up to Southern. It goes east to Dixie and just west past Military. However, state seats are different from local seats. What I can do can affect all Floridians, and I could bring appropriated funds into the district and the county by co-sponsoring bills and things like that. So even if I'm not in your district and you like my ideology, you think you like my platform, I don't care if it's a rep in Micanopy, Florida, that has nothing to do with you. They have something to do with you. State seats are important. If you find someone to support, you need to support them all over the state. Just because whatever I do will affect you, ultimately, no matter what part of Florida you're in.
It's true.
Fantastic.
Did you see in the news how that kid Santos from Long Island got into Congress? And they had an investigation, and he lied about everything. He lied about his sneaker size all the way to his parents' name, immigration, the whole nine. But do you know, the thing that disturbs me more than anything else is that the party kept him in place because they needed his vote for a slim majority. And that's why they kept him there. And they say, yeah, we heard all this, but now that it's come to light and they got to get rid of him, he throws the balance of slim majority equality until they can get somebody else in there to win that seat. But politics is an ugly game, man, because it stops making you a person until it affects you.
Right.
And once it affects you, then the game changes. If you get affected by even a policy you put out there and it affects you negatively in your life, in your family, you begin to change. And all these people that were saying it's okay because they wanted that slim, now they're paying the price because people saying you lied to me. And in politics, when you lie, it comes back to haunt you 7 times over. That's the problem. That's why our youth don't want to vote. They're so disgusted with what's going on. They'd rather just turn their bike on the whole system, and then here it goes again. Because the ones that are in control, they know that they can keep it going the way it's going. You want change. Always telling us we want change.
Yep.
You're looking at it.
Yep.
And here it is. You got a person. You got to reach out for it. You got to make an effort. Even if you're not in her district and you want to help out, you want to volunteer, whatever it takes to do, give her a call, set something up with her people. I think it's just a great idea all the way around.
561-291-9169, Debra, Debra, forhouse.com. I love it. I'm so glad you're here.
I appreciate that. And, you know, people have lost elections by one vote. And people start to think sometimes that their vote doesn't count because in the presidential election, it's the Electoral College where it's not the popular vote. So you might see 2 million extra votes for this candidate, but the other candidate won. So because that's the biggest turnout for the presidential election, people forget that state seats, governor seats, city municipal seats are not like that. Every single vote counts. And the state seats, we make those policies and legislation that affect your life. You know, you have to go all the way down the ballot. Don't just stop at the presidential. Don't just check off who you want for president. You have to go all the way down the ballot. You'll have the judicial races. You'll have the state races, the Senate races. You have so many different down ballot options to check. Don't just stop at the president. You have to go down and learn who is running and pick the best choice for your belief system. I do hope in my district they all vote for Debra Tendrich for House.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for you. Anything we can do to help you out,
Well,
you let us know.
Donate. You know, contributions are really, really critical for us to get our communications and messaging out to the community. So, you know, the maximum donation is $1,000, but I want to meet people where they are. If they can, you know, Obama won with $1 donation equals $1 vote, right? So he knew that people couldn't afford $1,000; they can afford 25, 10, and so
Nice.
I just need contributions and support, whether it's volunteers to knock on doors with me, make phone calls, financial contributions, and you can even attend my campaign kickoff, which is on September 21st from 6 to 8 at Sushi Joe in Lake Clark Shores, which is off Forest Hill.
That's not too far from you, right? You're out in Wellington.
It's literally right across my house.
Oh, Josh is sitting
I'll
there
see you
too.
there.
I didn't even know Josh was there.
There's a sushi boat
Jay.
and there's me. So if you haven't met me, that'll be a great opportunity to meet me. That'll be a great opportunity to meet some of my supporters and to just basically be a part of the, you know, the election process.
Well, you give hope to a younger generation. You give hope to their generation and your generation that, you know what, there is still people out there fighting for humanity and mankind.
Thank you.
And I love that.
Yep. And you know, that's important because this stuff affects you and your backyard. Presidential and all that, I get, but when you start to stop forgetting that the ones that are actually going to do something with your kids, the school district and everything else, it all begins local.
It all starts with you.
And you can't be reactive. And stuff like this, you have to be proactive.
Yeah.
You have to get ahead of it. Once it happens to you, it's so much harder to get out of and reverse it. So you really have to, you know, get ahead of it and be proactive in this process.
So thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us.